we were talking a bit before we started rolling for the show. It's like the brain runs everything. It runs everything. It's also impacted by everything. So it's not I'm not saying that it's the only thing that we should pay attention to, but making sure that we're not, let's just say if the brain uses a huge amount of our horsepower, a huge amount of our energy every day, and let's say that the efficiency of how it burns fuel is so poor that it's like a gas guzzler getting 8 miles an hour or 8 miles to the gallon. You know what I mean?
Thank you so much for joining us for another awesome episodes of Bioenergetic Beats. I'm Heather Gray, a functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner and certified bioenergetic practitioner. And today is brought to you by Nikki, Unleash the Wellness Within. It's a non-invasive, easily affordable, and highly effective approach to optimize wellness. It's a wearable device that puts frequency better-based life in your hands and on your wrist. Make sure to stick to the very, very end because we have an awesome giveaway. You're not going to want to miss out. But you're not going to want to miss out on one word my next guest has to say, because we're going to be talking about rewiring the brain, which is one of my favoriteest all-time topics, because when your brain works, everything else works. And so without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Amy Albright to the show.
Hi, thank you. So lovely to be with you, Heather.
So lovely to be with you. I'm super excited. Most of the guests I have on here, I know, but you must have come through one of your podcasting people, hit me up. So you're brandy new to me, and already we've hit it off, before camera started rolling. So I'm super excited to dive in deeper. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What kind of a doctor are you? How did you get started in this work? And, why are we talking about the brain?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm a doctor of Chinese medicine, which was an unexpected path for me. When I was an undergrad, I was studying neurosciences and really thought that if we could understand neurochemistry, we could understand human awareness, human experience, right? So unfortunately, at that time, I was in a lot of pain and I was a complete atheist. And then I had a really profound experience happen to me, and I realized that there was a God. And from that moment, I started to shift my understanding into, wait a minute, there's so much to life. There is so much more richness that's available other than just thinking like neurotransmitters. It was very like a formula before, you see. And so now I'm like, oh, wait a minute, there's depth and dimension and color. And it helps too that I'm not 18 anymore. I'm a bit older. So there's some maturity that happened, but that course really had me understand life from a different perspective. And so when I was 18, I shifted from just studying neurochemistry to starting to understand and study anthropology and ways of healing from around the world. And I shifted and pivoted instead of from neurosciences strictly to cognitive psychology to understand the brain and behavior. So this has been a long-standing theme for me, a long time interest. That was over 30 years ago. So, I stand here today kind of the product of a whole bunch of different things because when I was done with my undergrad, I basically realized that I did not feel called to move forward to get my PhD in cognitive sciences, not because I didn't find it fascinating, but because they said that I had to study the same thing for the rest of my life. And I was like, oh yeah, that's not going to happen. Pick a theory, pick a neural structure, and try to prove that for the rest of your life. Boring. I mean, what if I decide that I don't think my theory's good, So I basically then felt very called to enter into Chinese medicine. And then 4 years later, it's a huge academic, very rigorous program. We had to learn Western sciences and medicine as well as the Eastern medicine. And then as soon as I graduated from that, I realized that I had the ability to really see and understand people at a very deep level. And so I ended up doing a lot of coaching, a lot of guidance for folks, in addition to herbs and acupuncture and all the things. So it's a long story. And so then I ended up doing a lot of executive coaching and strategic advising at some point, maybe 5 or 7 years in on my career, because I realized that I could get a lot of people who could do the Chinese medicine part that I could refer to and kind of still oversee care, but that people were coming to me for guidance. And then at some point I met up with my neuroscientist colleague, and that was about 13 years ago. And so at that point we started to team up. So here my that like old reservoir of neurosciences comes forward along with this very holistic and systems-based understanding of energy medicine via Chinese medicine. And then he's been in neurosciences and is also a doctor of Chinese medicine. So we put our capacities together. And 13 years ago, in our brick and mortar clinic that we had at that time, clients would come and see me and get executive coaching or maybe some health support or whatever. And then they would see him and receive neurofeedback therapy, which literally changes how someone's brain works in real time, faster than the mind can perceive. And so people would come to us, week over week, and we would joke, but it's actually true. He would put the new wires in, and then I would show them how to use it. So we did that for a long time. And then eventually, there's a little bit of a winding story in between. We ended up forming Holon, which is now where we do all of those same things, but we do it in an intensive format because the brain really loves a deep pattern interrupt and consistent messaging to be able to really maximize neuroplasticity. And also, people really respond well when they get out of their environment and forget who they think they are and drop in. Right? They drop in and we help them to really feel the depths of who they actually are, not who their parents wanted them to be, not who they think they need to be for their kids or their job or their whatever they're up to, their role in life. So we guide them through processes, and that's a big part of what it is that my work is right now, is to offer events like that.
Sounds like I could use your help. We were just talking about how I completely blew up my life and moved to Mexico,
Yeah,
trying to remember who I am and forget what I'm supposed to be for everybody else. So,
that's right.
but I'm missing the tools to help guide me. It's like, no wonder I'm floundering. But I love the fact too, you're talking about anthropology. I loved anthropology in college and I
Yeah,
wanted to major in it, but the only reason I didn't is because I was told you either have to teach or you have to do research, in order to make money in that field. And I just really didn't want to do either and kind of feel like pigeonholed right into that one thing for the
yeah,
rest of my life. So, but it is so fascinating. I find the study of people and cultures just absolutely amazing.
yeah, totally. I think that's where we can find so many truths because basically we're inside of modern society and it's kind of a homogenized culture now, especially because we're so good at communicating. Well, not in real ways, but like electronic
It's
communication,
like,
right?
really? Are we?
Not really, but like disseminating information and basically, drinking our own brainwash soup, right? So that's a thing. And so we have this monoculture where everybody's trying to be either American, and what do Americans stand for? I mean, I think they stand for a lot of things, but one of the things that I could say we stand for is being really neurotic. Like generally in the world, people think of us as quite neurotic, and we think of it as normal, right? We think of that as high achiever, and it's like, no, that's actually
Mhm.
stress. And we can see the difference neurologically, right? This isn't just my opinion about how we should be, but if we want to find peak performance, like if we're driving a race car and we have the RPMs up too high and we don't have enough motor oil in the engine, we're having problems, right? Like
Yeah,
this is,
that's
and
a great
so
analogy.
yeah. So people can speculate about what they think peak performance is, and maybe we're not that neurotic or we're designed to be neurotic. And I'm like, yeah, let's look under the hood and see what the brain is showing. Because the electricity, the electrical current of the brain reveals so much. It's really incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I like to tell people I'm a recovering type A personality because, being that type A is how I ended up with 3 autoimmune diseases and 100 pounds overweight and Lyme disease for 27 years.
Mm,
People think that it's just a cause and effect. I got bit by a tick, I got Lyme disease. And I'm always trying to show them the patterns in their life that kind of set them up to be a good host for a lot of these things to begin with. And that's one thing I found in common with almost everybody I work with is there's some sort of type A, high performing, overachieving, right? Especially women having to prove
totally.
themselves,
Totally. Right. To be the nurturer, the provider, and
be
do
the
all of the
everything for
do all the
everybody. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Women do have a bit more of that, I think, than men do in our society. And I agree with you. I also have struggled with autoimmunity and all kinds of health stuff in my lifetime. And I think it had everything to do with, well, early childhood trauma, trying to be too many things for too many people, all of the story. And in my history and my story of recovering from all of those things, which has definitely not been a straight line and has been very up and down and, all of the things. I would say that the biggest thing is me coming to know myself and really healing up all of the past. And then there's an element for sure of me working with my neurology. We were talking a bit before we started rolling for the show. It's like the brain runs everything. It runs everything. It's also impacted by everything. So it's not I'm not saying that it's the only thing that we should pay attention to, but making sure that we're not, let's just say if the brain uses a huge amount of our horsepower, a huge amount of our energy every day, and let's say that the efficiency of how it burns fuel is so poor that it's like a gas guzzler getting 8 miles an hour or 8 miles to the gallon. You know what I mean? And so
I
like
love all your car analogies.
they're
They're
helping,
spot
right? I
on.
mean, well, if I try to explain it in brain terms, I'm either going to have to dumb it down to where it's not even accurate anymore, which is, I think, what a lot of folks in the brain space unfortunately do. Or I'm
Right.
going to go over into analogies and make sure that it's accurate. You know what I
Right.
mean? And
Right.
also
Yeah,
that
no, it's
people can
beautiful.
tell because I mean, this is very real. Like we can have an amazing vehicle. But if our brain is really inefficient and we're getting like that 8 miles to the gallon when we could be getting 30 miles to the gallon, and knowing how much fuel it takes in general, how much of us it takes to run our brain, and that our brain is our perceptual filter for who we think we are, what we think reality is, how we communicate, how we bond with other people, how strategic we are. I mean, it is how well we sleep, everything, right? Like everything.
I always tell people I'm like having a mission in life of being kind to the Karens in the world, right? Because those
Mm,
Karens are probably inflamed in the brain like I used to be,
that's right.
and like last summer I had a mold exposure from a window AC unit, and I was
Ooh,
starting a fight with my ex-husband 2 to 3 times a week. And I did that for like 3 weeks straight before we figured out what was going on. And it's just sad that, people don't automatically see that kind of change in a personality and go, oh, what's going on? They just, oh, she's
totally.
crazy, or oh, she's
Yep.
hormonal, or oh, she's
Hmm.
menopausal, all these things. But there was a real physiological event that was causing brain inflammation that was causing me to
Mm.
be a Karen.
Yeah.
Right. So, so
Totally.
be kind to the Karens of the world.
Yeah, we don't know what people are walking through, and they may not either. Kind of to your point, like you didn't know you were dealing with mold. If
Nope.
you'd known you were dealing with mold, you might be like, "Oh, I'm in a really bad mood. Might be the mold," but you weren't thinking that because you didn't know.
Nope.
And we are all exposed to such incredible levels of toxicity that it is actually insane. Like the PFAS stuff and all the forever chemicals and the glyphosates and all of that stuff is absolutely, it's not just causing leaky gut or like a clogged up liver, but it's actually really changing how our brains are working. There's a lot post COVID, not even to mention anything about kind of the ancillary topics around that, but just the disease itself. We've seen changes in people's brains and a decrease in blood flow. And it kind of puts people, whether it's that or mold or Lyme, that people can be in kind of a zombie state in a way. And we're watching that. And then we can judge that as well. Right. So it may
Right.
not be that they're angry. It might be that they're sort of semi catatonic and you're like, hello, but if we judge that, we're basically judging essentially kind of ourselves in a
For
way.
sure.
Like we're putting the blame somewhere that it doesn't belong
It's
onto
funny though,
them.
because knowing what I know now, especially when I'm like behind the wheel of a car and I'm on the road and I'm looking around at all these other people and I'm going, God, how many of them are dealing with some sort of brain inflammation, brain fog right
Totally.
now? Like not, and then they're
Probably almost
distracted with
everyone.
their phones and oh
Mhm.
my God, yeah, don't get me
Yeah,
started.
totally. Gluten in this
Oh,
country makes leaky gut, and then now we have brain inflammation. The standard American diet. I really do love being an American for so many reasons, but I'm noticing I'm not that positive right now about it. 'Cause it's really there's a lot of pathology that gets baked into what we call normal, and there's
oh,
like hundreds
absolutely.
and hundreds of things that are illegal in Europe, and then there's within
Absolutely.
that the things that we shouldn't even allow anywhere, much
Can
less,
I get an amen? Yes. Where are
Yes,
you
right?
located right now?
Northern California.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Man, we could geek out for
I
forever.
know, right? I
But we're going
know.
to take a quick break, and when we come back, we're going to dive deeper into the meat and potatoes of this, of how can we rewire our brain? What are the things that we can do? Take home some practical advice on giving your brain some love. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back.
There's a new word for wellness, Nikki. Nikki is your personal wellness companion, a sleek, wearable device that lets you choose from a variety of programs to match your day. With a simple tap on the Nikki screen, you can explore wellness programs created for different moments and lifestyles. Need a lift? Select energy. Looking to unwind? Tap stress and anxiety. Want to feel more at ease? Choose pain. Heading out on a trip? Try travel to help you feel ready for new adventures. From busy mornings to quiet evenings, Nikki puts a variety of wellness experiences right at your fingertips and on your wrist. Life moves fast. Nikki moves with you. It's a portable way to bring wellness technology into your everyday routine, wherever life takes you. Your day, your choice, your wellness program. Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health. We are Nikki.com.
Fantastic. Welcome back. Are you guys having as much fun as I am? This has just been, like I said, the brain has been one of my favorite because I've been there too many times. Well, I was in the psych ward twice,
Ooh.
I've been labeled crazy. I've been on all kinds of antidepressants and this and that. And so it's a huge part of my journey, and
Mm.
I even had stand up and I used to say, I told you I'm not crazy. And they would say, that's what a crazy person would say. I want to start a new movement. Again, another one. Let's stop calling people crazy. Instead, say your brain inflammation is showing. Because
Mm.
once you slap somebody with that crazy stigma, it's
Yeah.
really hard to wash off or be taken seriously again. I'm
Yeah.
anything but crazy.
Yeah, totally. I don't get crazy vibes from you at
Yeah,
all.
no.
Um,
I'm
yeah, I would,
actually pretty damn solid when this is working properly, but when it's not
yeah,
working
totally.
properly, all bets are off. So, yeah, tell us a little bit more on how we can rewire our brain and some of the tools that you use.
Yeah, totally. I just want to go back for a half a second to the crazy. Thanks for sharing that with me and with the listeners. And on that, I just want to say that oftentimes the most innovative, pioneering, and brilliant people who are also the most empathic in some cases, not always, people are the ones that get um, gaslit into feeling like they're crazy.
Yeah.
So I just want to say that because, anybody that stands, going back to that anthropology topic, anybody that stands for something different than what normal culture at that moment in time, at that place in geography of history, right? Like of that little, anything that's different than that can be labeled crazy and then swept away. So it's an incredible way to discount um, diversity of points of view, and that's something that I think that's really important to talk about. So. Um, yeah, so rewiring the brain. I mean, it's kind of everything. It's kind of all the things that we're talking about. Like if we know that we're living inside of an illusion, like society is lying to us and then we try to make ourselves fit into the lies and then we scream at ourselves and say that we're not performing well or we're not good enough or not lovable or whatever for not fitting into those conformities, which are again based on lies. I mean, that would be like a really great, let's just start with a fresh template. Just like you just moved to Mexico, starting with a fresh template. I think it's so important that we recognize that and that we find those deeper places of truth inside of us. A lot of the times, what it is that we're doing that can have us not even know how to begin to rewire our own brain is that we're in denial of the truth of ourself, right? So, sometimes the little inklings that we have or that we're shown about us when we're really small, like little toddler, like how were we when we were 3, when we were 7, when we were 10? What were we in love with? That part of you that was so into anthropology, for instance, is now super interested in meeting people with super diverse backgrounds that can bring you education about all these different ways of thinking and being in the world, right? So you can kind of see these through lines. If we honor ourselves in a really deep way, we're actually beginning to rewire our brain because our brain is giving us signals that we're having threats because we're not honoring ourselves. And then we're telling ourselves that there's something wrong with us, right?
I just gave me goosebumps. Like, whoa, truth bomb.
Yeah, good. I love being super practical. I mean, what we do um, at this laboratory that I'm currently standing in is the most high tech hardware, software, like neuroengineering, change your brain by the wires that can be done. It's expensive. It's not accessible to everybody. But what we do have that's accessible are things like this: paradigm busters, right? Reframes. Because here's another one: don't manage your stress, handle it, like resolve it, let it leave the body.
Oh my gosh, I've been fighting with people so bad because they're like, how are you doing? I'm like, I'm sad and I'm this. And they're like, well, do those emotions serve you? I'm like, I'm grieving my marriage and my dead cat and my life. I am
Yeah,
allowed to
yeah,
feel these feelings and I am going to feel them for an appropriate amount of time because I know what happens if you don't, right?
that's right. That's right.
So yeah, let's stop this spiritual bypassing and this toxic
Thank you.
positivity, please.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, totally. Yeah. Allow yourself to feel your feelings, and it's, actually dipping into them deeper. But with the space being held internally, like a wise one self that's like, it's okay. This will pass. I am strong. And I just have to allow for all of this emotion to pass through. And it's going to be just great, because the me that's me is still the me that's underneath. Part of what I want to share about the brain, and this goes back to something that you said earlier, is that all of those places that people have gone, whether it's moments of ecstasy or the depths of grief and sorrow, hyper focus to, I mean, you name it, anything that anybody's ever experienced, there is a neurological correlation. There is a neurological state. So it's not just neurotransmitters, but it's like how the brain is being lit up. So people who have trauma, they can't just decide not to have trauma. The part that decides to not have trauma would be, amongst other things, like the default mode network or the prefrontal, and it can try really hard to not have trauma. I'll just spiritually bypass. But the parts that are experiencing the trauma are back in the reptilian brain, like the cerebellum, which is even deeper than the amygdala. The cerebellum is giving a huge amount of information to the two amygdala, to the insula, right? So those are so primitive that we can't actually just talk them out of it. Because if emotions were something that we could talk ourselves out of, they would be thoughts, right? And the thoughts and the emotions are totally different in the brain. They are not the same. So I encourage you and everybody, like, we can keep on running. We can keep trying to not feel our feelings. We have endless amounts of places that we can be addicted in our phone alone, not to mention in workaholism, not to mention in TV or other substances or whatever it is that people might find their way to. But so it takes a very brave and courageous choice. So I commend you for taking a hot minute, even if you feel like you crashed out your life. I see it as really, really effective, right? Like if you're going to do something, you decide to do it big. I have a feeling, even though we just met, that's how you roll. So you're just doing it in a big way. And it's probably going to be more efficient as a result. And really, in the end, do you want to spend 30 years suppressing your feelings? Do you want to spend 15 years thinking about and talk therapying your feelings? Or do you want to spend a few months and just dump huge reservoirs of stuff out?
Amen.
So
Yeah,
in some
absolutely.
ways we're talking about strategy of, you can hear inside of the way that I'm talking and framing this that I'm a coach, right? Like there's some really time proven strategies that myself and others have helped people with, or that people can help themselves with. But ultimately we're still talking about the brain. It really is. People can come into one of our programs and have an EEG, which is an electrical study of the brain, right? And the EEG will show that they are having PTSD symptoms. Meanwhile, they're like, but I'm a highly functioning, because we work with only super highly functioning people, but I'm a highly functioning whatever. And I've done all these fancy things in my life, and I have kids, and I like built this whole empire, and like, whatever, sold a business, whatever their things are. And I'm like, yeah. And you have PTSD, and they're like, well, yeah, I kind of did, but I didn't really want to think about it. Right. But they know that they've been fighting back walls of emotion all of that time. They know that their nervous system doesn't easily regulate. So again, just to kind of further make that point, it's there, it's in the brain, you can see it, and you can also change it. So I think the first and foremost, to sum up everything that we've talked about, is framing in perspective as a strategy for rewiring the brain. Like not being inside of pathology, not realizing that the framing around us in society is often what's pathological, not pathologizing that we're having emotions, and framing it that we can be our true self. And I think that's some fundamental stuff for rewiring the brain right there. Those three things kind of falling under one category.
Dr. Amy with the mic drop.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, again, we can get really fancy, but it's often the simple stuff.
So many times people discredit, I harp on the foundations of getting your feet outside the ground.
That's right.
Have you gotten into the sunshine today? Are you breathing regular air? Have you got enough movement, or have you been sitting at your desk all day? Like, I love telling the story about my stepson who was like crawling out of his skin, and he was all angsty. And I knew for a fact he had been sitting at his computer for like 6 hours straight. And I was like, take your shoes and socks off, go sit outside 20 minutes. I don't want you to come back until it's done.
Yeah.
He fought me on it, but when he came back, he was a completely different kid.
Love it.
I was like, oh my gosh,
Love it.
you're kidding me.
Right. And in the meantime, you guys could have ended up in a huge fight. So good for you for not, right? Which then further perpetuates beliefs about self and each other that aren't necessarily true. It's like he just screwed up his brain by sitting in front of a computer and holding still indoors with no sunlight when he should be moving. Oh, okay. And getting free electrons from the earth. Great. Right. So you knew that. But it's just also really amazing that, again, it's not, we didn't have to go into psychotherapy over it. Not that there's a problem with that, but it's like, we don't have to go into all of these places or create further trauma by just doing, it's like not that sexy, honestly. Like I tell people the best stuff is like sleep. It's not, I could get paid a lot of money for talking about this stuff, but everybody's like rolling their eyes. And I'm like, no, really, I've been on this path. I've been on my own health journey since birth, but in alternative medicine for 32 years. And I've been a practitioner for 23. And what I can tell you is it still comes down to the basics. And I love me some biohacks. But if we're not drinking water, sleeping, getting our free electrons from the earth, the sunshine, just to drive home that point that you had, we're basically trying to put Band-Aids over holes, right, that are just pouring out water, and it doesn't really work. And our biology doesn't lie. So.
Absolutely. So we got just a little bit of time left. Is there any little last nuggets that you want to drop on us before we sign off?
Oh my goodness, time went by so fast.
I know.
So I gave you like that general overview about rewiring the brain. I can also say that there are some amazing neurotechnology devices out there that I can just talk about that are over the counter. I can't, diagnose, treat, or cure anything on this podcast. I can't tell anybody that it's right for them because I don't know anybody that's listening to this podcast. But what I can say is that there are some amazing and expensive-ish devices that I can talk about. One of them is the Sensei headset. And Sensei, it's a headset that trains with neurofeedback therapy. So neurofeedback therapy takes the electrical information from the brain. It's just a sensor. It's not putting any zappy things or current into the brain. And it senses that and it feeds it into a computer, and then the computer tells the brain how it's doing. So what an amazing gift that the brain can learn on its own what it's doing or not doing. Because mostly it just sort of feels like everything is just, how does the brain know about itself? It learns, but this is very, very direct and specific training. So it has wave training, and it has training for SMR, sensory motor rhythm, which essentially does a whole bunch of things, including focus and getting grounded into one's body. So that's really awesome. And that device also does heart rate variability training, and then it does photobiomodulation, so literally shoots healthy lasers into the brain, which may change some long-term pictures for brain health, especially, but it can actually change the brain in that moment for the better. People feel a little perked up or whatever. So the Sensei headset is amazing, and I wanted to make sure to mention that. The brain has an incredible capacity for neuroplasticity. And so, although we don't want to spiritually bypass, we do want to choose healthy and positive tracks and build small habits in the right direction, because the brain is taking in that information and learning. And we can impact it directly with things like neurofeedback therapy, also photobiomodulation that goes into the eyes, like light therapy that blinks over the eyes. Like the Neurovisor headset is another one that I absolutely love. And in our labs, we've seen it change a brain by a couple standard deviations in like 12 minutes. It's a total reboot. It doesn't train the brain in the same way how to do all that on its own, but just by having that reset, the brain over time learns to live in a different way, but, function in a different way. So there's some really incredible, those are a couple that I feel like are safe for a lot of people, not for everybody. There's a lot of other neurotech that's out there that I can't say that I recommend. So I want to be sure to tell people that piece too. We need to be super educated and informed and stay safe with all of it. But overall, neurofeedback therapy has been around since the 1960s, and it's been studied by, Harvard, Stanford, like big names study it, but they typically just treat pathology. And I think that part of what we're talking about here is like, okay, yeah, we can treat ADHD or insomnia or depression and things like that with neurofeedback therapy. But can we also, and we do all the time in our work with leadership, peak performance, wisdom, intuition, things like that, that are really going to change the quality of someone's life for the positive and have them reach out into what is possible and really remember who they are at the depths. So, yeah, there's so much that's possible with the brain, and for people to just recognize that all of that possibility, we are really, like our brain is really kind of infinitely capable, and so are we. And just to remember that.
My face hurts from smiling so big during this show. She's almost brought me to tears a couple times. It's been great. I'm not on camera, but she's just really speaking to the heart. Hopefully you guys can feel it as much as I have. Dr. Amy, thank you so much for everything you're doing in this world. And here's the shameless plug time of the show. So where can people find more about you and some of the work that you guys do?
Oh, yeah, thank you. The company's name is Holon, Holon, and it speaks to the interconnectedness of all things, of our brain, of our reality, of the people around us. And our website is holonexperience.com, Holon experience.com. And that's probably the best place to start. And there's a lot of information there. We also have a YouTube channel. And we'll put all those notes in the show notes. And thank you for having me. It's been a really fun conversation.
Absolutely. Also, make sure to visit wearenikki.com/podcast, enter in BioBeats for 10% off. And because we really love our customers, the way we show appreciation is we give away a free Nikki device as well as a wellness set of frequencies. It's a $598 value. So make sure to go to the show notes and check out Dr. Amy and also enter. Good luck. And we will see you next week. Have a healthy day.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency enhanced health.
It looks like a little watch, but it's actually a frequency device. It's bioenergetic, so it has this little frequency light situation that goes into your arm.
This is my Nikki. It is a bioenergetic wearable that works by emitting a specific frequency carried by a red light, as you can see on the back. It's aimed at enhancing the body's natural healing process to improve wellness and reducing stress, pain, and inflammation. And to select a frequency, you tap it to wake it up, and then you slide to the screens that list the different frequencies. I have wellness or Lyme on mine. So if we want to pick one, we just tap on it, and you'll see the circles around, and there's a play button, play areas, tap there, and you can see the colors radiating that show that it's playing, and you would also see the red light on the back. And to stop, you just tap it again, and then you can slide and select a different frequency. I'm going to play afternoon. And you just tap, and away you go for your afternoon.
So they're two different things. You have the Nikki device, and then you have the frequency sets. And so right now they have the wellness set of frequencies and they have the Lyme set of frequencies, and both of them are absolutely incredible. I use both sets on a regular basis, so I absolutely love them.
Nikki Wellness Technology. Delivering frequency-enhanced health. wearenikki.com. The views, information, and opinions expressed in this content are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of Freemedica. Freemedica Technologies, Inc. and its employees are not responsible, nor verifies accuracy any of the information contained in the following content. The primary purpose of this content is to educate and inform. This content does not constitute medical or other professional advice or services.